Bitcoin is getting ready to go back to the future. I mean, back to $65,000, and of course, staging itself to go on to hit $100,000. The fabled 6-digit Bitcoin, the Bitcoin of legend. At least that's according to a report from Bloomberg. It's interesting, as I was saying, as soon as the institutions are ready, they're just going to flip the switch. Everything's bullish again. Lots of good news coming out. And we do have good news to discuss today. Big news from Fidelity, big news out of Spain, big news out of Uruguay. Also have some Bitcoin ETF news for you as well. I'll be diving into all of that in this video. My name's Lark. Every day I make videos talking about cryptocurrency investing, so if that's a topic that you would like to learn some more about, make sure you subscribe to the Lark Davis channel, that you are gently tapping on that thumbs up button for the YouTube algorithm. Just takes a quick second. Don't break your screens or anything. Just a little tap is all it takes. And click on the notification bell to know when I put out a new video. Now, real quick before we dive into those topics, issue number 57 of Wealth Mastery has just come out. So this is my weekly investor report that my team and I put together. It costs less than $10 a week, and it's just jam-packed full of value. This week, I talked about finding a good NFT. Rect Capital looked at the Bitcoin logarithmic charts. DeFi Dad had a hot new way for you to earn up to 50% APY on your Ethereum. Crazy opportunities out there in DeFi. A massive amount of airdrops this week, which is like a massive list of airdrops. Loads of those going on. 3 new token sales. Mo Dong from Seller Network, he actually joined us to discuss their layer 2 scaling solutions for multiple blockchains. Very interesting stuff. Jesse also dove into the coming Bancor V3 and what that means for Bancor users. We also have a deep dive report on Convex Finance and much, much more. So if you want to become a member to the weekly newsletter, have a click down below on the link to learn more about that. Now let's get into the news. First, let's start off with Fidelity. Fidelity has bought 7.4% of Marathon Digital Holdings. Now, Marathon, it is one of the largest Bitcoin mining companies in North America, and they actually just bought, I think, 30,000 more Bitcoin mining machines, which may end up making them the biggest Bitcoin miner in 2022. Marathon is a big deal in the Bitcoin mining game. And of course, Fidelity has long been big proponents of Bitcoin. They're the world's 3rd biggest asset manager, and they are massive, massive Bitcoin fans. They've been offering different Bitcoin products to some of their clients for a while, more of their clients now. They've been investing in Bitcoin mining. They've been doing Bitcoin mining before with some different companies. Now they've been investing in miners as well. Here they are buying up 7.4% of a Bitcoin mining company. So yeah, Fidelity doubling down on their bullish thesis for Bitcoin. Absolutely awesome to see this continued belief of massive companies like Fidelity in Bitcoin. And that's always something interesting to think about when you see the haters come out for Bitcoin, right? And you look like, okay, so you're here, you're hating on Bitcoin. I get it. You're a Bitcoin hater. Welcome to the party. Join the club. There's a long line. Get in the back of it. You see companies like Fidelity, full of very serious people, and they're hardcore into Bitcoin, and it's amazing. And you see the Bitcoin haters, like, you really think, you know, you've got some magical knowledge here that's better than one of the world's largest wealth management firms? No, you don't. Bitcoin haters, man. Next up, some great news out of Spain. So Spain is considering a whole new bill, actually. So the big news, of course, is that it will allow for mortgage payments in crypto, but it's actually a pretty big bill that's going to allow for much more than that. So it's a whole raft of different things coming in to really try to legitimize cryptocurrencies much more within Spain. Spain's already been a crypto-friendly enough anyway country, but they're going much deeper with this new law that's being proposed. So it's going to go deeper onto crypto, deeper into blockchain, as well as AI and stuff like that. But it's bringing in tax incentives for companies operating within those sectors. So Spain actually wants to attract companies to come into their country and build crypto stuff. Which, look at what happened with China. China just basically said, get out of here, innovation. We don't want this giant innovational booming sector to be in our country. Then you have Spain over here saying, actually, let's legislate to get these companies to come to our country. That's how winning is done. That's how winning is done. And of course, the big thing that came out of this bill is that it would legitimize it in such a way that actually you could allow to pay your mortgage in crypto, which, that's a pretty good use of your cryptocurrencies. And I know there's some people out there, but Lark, if I use my Bitcoin to pay for my mortgage, my Bitcoin will be worth more in the future. Yeah, but you'll have a place to live. It's better than spending it on coffee or pizza. At least you're going to have a house at the end of it. So there's that. There's that you can consider. But this is definitely great news for adoption. Spain, obviously a major world economy. So seeing them taking these steps is definitely a positive thing. We also have more news from the Spanish-speaking world. A Uruguayan lawmaker has proposed a bill to allow cryptocurrency to be used for payments. Now, this was initially reported as a bill that would see Bitcoin as legal tender within Uruguay. It's not going to be legal tender within Uruguay, but it will be legal for payments. Now, that's a very big and important differentiator, because legal tender is something that carries a completely different legal status that allows you to do everything with it, and also means that people need to accept that. But allowing Bitcoin for payments, I think, is the nice middle step. Now, it'll obviously be great to see Uruguay hop on the legal tender bandwagon, but just allowing cryptocurrency for payments, providing a regulatory framework for that to actually happen, that's a really positive thing. That means that businesses who want to accept cryptocurrencies can accept cryptocurrencies. That people who want to pay in cryptocurrencies can pay in cryptocurrencies. And there's a framework for how that happens. They also want to set up more regulations to make it a more transparent process for cryptocurrency exchanges, for cryptocurrency miners. This is all positive stuff. I think the move by El Salvador, one of the best things about the whole El Salvador thing, we'll see how it plays out in the long run, has been just the amount of interest that this story has sparked from other lawmakers around Latin America in regards to cryptocurrency legislation. We saw Paraguay come out with cryptocurrency legislation, Uruguay now. We saw Colombia as well proposing stuff. Panamanian lawmakers also hopping on the bandwagon. Mexican lawmakers also taking an interest in what was happening. Brazilian lawmakers also taking interest in what was happening. Look, not all of that ended up in actual bills being proposed, but people are paying attention. And we did get bills proposed in a few countries, so it's definitely positive. It just shows you what can happen when somebody takes the brave steps that El Salvador did to move the industry forward and to move the conversation forward in terms of like, hey, why don't we just start using Bitcoin as a form of money? Great idea. Great idea. I love it. Now let's talk about the Bitcoin ETF news. So Gary Gensler, head of the SEC, as part of his big conversation that he had around cryptocurrencies, he also talked about the Bitcoin ETF. I thought we covered enough news yesterday. I didn't want to talk about the Bitcoin ETF stuff too, but he talked about the Bitcoin ETF. So we're going to talk a little bit about what he had to say in regards to a Bitcoin ETF. Gensler said that an ETF that complies with the SEC's strict rules for mutual funds could provide investors with necessary protections. Speaking his first major speech on cryptocurrencies, he also signaled openness to an ETF focused exclusively on Bitcoin futures, which are offered by the CME Group. It requires investors to put down a substantial margin to trade. He said, given these important protections, I look forward to the staff's review of such filings, particularly if those are limited to the CME traded Bitcoin futures. Now, there's obviously silver linings in this here, but one thing that I'm not super excited about is his focus on ETFs that focus on the CME's Bitcoin futures. WTF, man. WTF. Come on. Come on. The CME's Bitcoin futures are paper contracts. They're not backed by any actual Bitcoin, so I'm not very excited about that. So he's in the whole, we just don't have enough investor protection in crypto. It's more like the Wild West. Has this guy seen the stock markets? Does he know what goes on Wall Street? And he's talking about investor protections out here. And look, sure, let's get some more investor protections on board. But realistically, I think a great way to bring those investor protections in is to allow people to get a Bitcoin ETF, to give them a safe, simple way to go to their trusted broker and get a Bitcoin product. There's, I think, 13 Bitcoin ETF applications in right now. Incredible stuff from the world's biggest, most incredible companies. We have Grayscale and Fidelity, the company we just talked about a minute ago, world's third biggest asset manager. They're trying to get a Bitcoin ETF through. Morgan Stanley, one of the world's biggest banks. I mean, just incredible applications out there for Bitcoin ETFs from very serious companies with very serious plans in place. So, you know, to say that it's the Wild West, it's not the Wild West. There's been sheriffs in town for quite a while. It's not so crazy out there. And yeah, if you start getting into the weeds of crypto land, there is some Wild West going on out there. When it comes to Bitcoin, Bitcoin's not the Wild West so much anymore. Especially when you bring in ETF products that will make the industry less of a Wild West, because it'll actually move a lot of Bitcoin investment onto brokerages and stuff like this, where it can be better monitored by regulators, et cetera, et cetera. So we'll see. We'll see. He's not shooting it down. He's not saying, I'm not going to approve a Bitcoin ETF. He says, I am open to a Bitcoin ETF. He's talking about the CME as well. So we'll see what that comes of that. But I think most importantly is that he is open to seeing a Bitcoin ETF come through. He's not an open hater like Jay Clayton was during his time at the SEC. So I think that Gary will eventually approve a Bitcoin ETF when it meets his perfect ideals of what a Bitcoin ETF is supposed to look like anyway. But the Bitcoin ETF struggle does continue on. Grayscale has actually just hired a new ETF manager, somebody with 20 years experience in the ETF space. Now, Grayscale, they are obviously the world's biggest holders of Bitcoin after Satoshi. If they were to get their Bitcoin Trust product transferred into a Bitcoin ETF, it would actually overnight become the world's third biggest commodity-based ETF, which is, absolutely massive. And I'm sure it would grow from there anyway as more and more money comes in, because when the ETF does come out, a lot of these institutions and organizations and investors and different people who have been sitting on the sidelines, they're going to buy a Bitcoin ETF. It's just going to happen. It'll be totally nuts when it comes out. So Grayscale continuing to double down on that and trying to push it forward. Now let's talk about Bitcoin going to $100,000. So this is a report from Bloomberg talking about Bitcoin heading back up to $100,000. This article from Bitcoin Magazine highlights the best parts. We're going to go through a few of these. I'll give you my thoughts on them. So in the report, they said, we see performance parallels that could get the benchmark cryptocurrency back up towards $100,000. Said what's changed in about 3 years is sufficient to sustain more of the same for most of Bitcoin's history, aka rising prices. He says supply is declining while demand and adoption are rising in most countries. And this is the most important thing. This is the most important and simplest metric that you can pay attention to in crypto, particularly when we're talking about Bitcoin. Let's look back. Historical performance, right? Higher lows year after year after year. What's happening for the price of Bitcoin. It basically just keeps going up. Yeah, we have big corrections. Yeah, we have bear markets. Yeah, we have bear trends. The price of Bitcoin, though, keeps rising. And the adoption of Bitcoin keeps rising. There is now 3 times as many people holding Bitcoin today as there was 3 years ago. These are incredible statistics. This is crazy stuff. The demand for Bitcoin has gone exponentially higher than it was a few years ago, and it just keeps growing. We get more and more banks offering Bitcoin to their clients. We get more and more financial companies like PayPal offering Bitcoin to their clients. It becomes easier and easier to get. We have more and more countries hopping on board trying to provide regulatory clarity so that they can invite those industries into their countries and let people get freaking Bitcoin. Adoption has barely started. If you look at adoption curves, we're still way over here, where we haven't even come up to this mid-peak area yet. Bitcoin has still got a long way to go. In fact, the $100,000, that's going to feel good when it happens. We're going to pop some champagne. We'll pop some champagne when we get the $100,000 Bitcoin, guys. But that's just $100,000. Bitcoin's going to be worth at least $500,000 by the end of the decade. Potentially $1 million. But $100,000, that's a nice midterm goal. We can keep an eye on that. Now, they also said that Bitcoin is becoming digital gold in a world going that way. Free market capitalism is on the rise via digital assets. Unless enduring trends reverse, the US dollar and Bitcoin stand to be primary beneficiaries. The world is becoming digital, and I think what this is talking about, this is a longer term trend. Bitcoin as digital gold, as gold 2.0. I've talked about that a lot here on the channel. I think it's a great analogy. We have a fixed supply for gold. A fixed supply for Bitcoin. Bitcoin's transparent. There's so many positives of Bitcoin over gold, and that's not to say that gold is a bad investment. If you don't want to make a lot of money or lose a lot of money, gold's a decent place to go. If you want to buy the next gold that's still in price discovery, it's Bitcoin. It's Bitcoin. He also says Bitcoin is helping to bank the unbanked in the primary up-and-coming country. China doesn't permit the free flow of capital or discourse. He said this in relation to El Salvador, and it's true. It's true. We are seeing unprecedented levels of Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, more broadly, adoption all around the world. China has been completely unable to stop Bitcoin. Even with all of its crackdowns, the black market continues to thrive because you can't stop Bitcoin. Sanctions, authoritarian governments, none of that stuff can stop Bitcoin. And then we see countries like El Salvador where 70% of the population has no access to banking, but there is 1.4 phones per person in the country, perfectly ripe to disrupt the financial situation there and to bank all of these unbanked people, or actually not bank them, to Bitcoin all of these unbanked people. They don't need a bank. They can have a equivalent of a bank account in their pocket on their digital wallet. And El Salvador is not the only country with those kind of statistics. Look at a lot of South America. Look at a lot of Africa. Look at a lot of Eastern Europe or South Asia, the Pacific. There's a lot of people out there who are ready for this kind of financial disruption in their lives because the legacy system, it does not work for most people, unfortunately. So, welcome to the Bitcoin disruption. Anyway, $100,000 Bitcoin really doesn't even feel like a crazy thing to say. Might have sounded crazy a few years ago in the same way that a $10,000 Bitcoin would have sounded crazy 5 years ago. But $100,000 Bitcoin, I have full conviction that it's coming. It's only a question when it's going to happen. But your question for today, I did this poll over on Twitter. You can feel free to come over here on Twitter and pop your opinion on, or of course, just let me know down below in the comment section here on YouTube what you think. So Ray Dalio, famous investor, he came out and said, if he had to choose, he's going to choose gold, not Bitcoin. I obviously disagree with that. I would take the Bitcoin over the gold. Although I also have gold. I also have a bit of gold sitting around, but it's a fraction compared to the amount of Bitcoin that I have, right? I am a Bitcoin investor. Ray Dalio, he's old school. He still doesn't trust Bitcoin enough. He would go with gold. So your question, if I gave you $1 million worth of one of the following, on the understanding that you have to hold it for 10 years, you can't sell any of this before 10 years. Which are you going to choose? Are you going to choose Bitcoin? Are you going to choose gold? Are you going to choose Ethereum? Or are you going to choose an altcoin? Maybe some Polkadot, maybe Dogecoin, right? Maybe some Cardano, maybe another coin. Let me know down below in the comment section. Thank you so much for watching today's video, and peace out till next time.